Very good evening, friends. Meeting again in the session of Kant's philosophy, and we are discussing with new chapter yesterday, that is the homeopathic aggravation. It's a big chapter. Kant has given lot of time to deliver this lecture, and he has explained many concepts, practical concepts related with the homeopathic aggravation. Few of them already we have discussed in yesterday's lecture, where he has elaborated the aphorism number 154 as explained by Dr. Hahnemann in the 6th edition of Organon of Medicine. And we have finished with that paragraph where he ends the explanation of 154 aphorism. Next, he starts with the next paragraph that is related with the aphorism number 155. So, we'll start with next paragraph. The next paragraph continues this one to a certain extent. Paragraph 155. I say without any degree of suffering, because when a perfect homeopathic remedy acts upon the body, it is nothing more than symptom analogous to those of disease, laboring to surmount and annihilate these latter by usurping their place. This is only speaking from experience. Whenever Hahnemann makes such a remark, he does not place any great value upon it because it is a matter of opinion. So even Hahnemann himself have also explained that this is my thought that this might have happened, that the original disease, that is natural disease, is overcome by the artificial disease. And Hahnemann says over there, this is not of a great value, that how it takes place, how this cure takes place. Because the things are dynamic and no one can explain exactly. What I explain is the probable explanation of how it takes place with my intelligence. This is what Hahnemann says in the Organon of Medicine. And here also Kant says that this is a matter of opinion. Hahnemann says this is my opinion that this happens in such and such manner. So the natural disease is overcome by the artificial disease when your remedy is very perfect and the nature's law of cure works over there. That is, the weaker dynamic affection is permanently extinguished in the living organism by a stronger one, if latter, whilst differing in kind, is very similar to former in its manifestation. And this is the probable explanation what Hahnemann explains. And during this time, when your artificial disease is more stronger than the natural disease, homeopathic aggravation has to be happened. This is inevitable. You will find as a general thing in acute diseases that if a slight aggravation of the symptoms comes in a few minutes, you will hardly ever think of giving another dose. So what he says, if there is a homeopathic aggravation after giving first few doses or first dose, then there is no question of repetition, because it indicates that your remedy has acted and it has produced its impact upon the artificial disease. It has removed the artificial disease. The remedy is so similar and searches so thoroughly that it is hardly ever necessary to repeat it. Now, there are circumstances when it is necessary to repeat, but this is so difficult to teach and so difficult to lay down rules for, that the only safe plan is to begin cases without repetition, to give a single dose and wait and watch its effects. I very commonly give in vigorous typhoid fever patients medicines in water because it is continued fever, but I watch and wait, giving it several days, and the slightest sign of action of remedy causes me to stop it always. I never vary from that. In a fever where the patient is feeble, to gain an immediate reaction, that should never be done. So he explains that whenever you get in treating the acute diseases, the homeopathic aggravation, it is the time to stop your remedy. No need to repeat it. And many times this repetition brings on the proving. Instead of getting the patient cured, it goes on proving the remedy. And that's why this is a good sign which indicates your remedy has acted and there is no more remedy is needed. What needed is the placebo. So Homeopathic aggravation specifically when happens in first few minutes or first few hours after giving a remedy to an acute disease itself is an indication that there is no repetition of the remedy is needed now. In the remittent fever, the reaction may come in a very few hours, and one dose should be the rule, while in typhoid, the reaction will be seldom come in few hours. It is a matter of few days, and hence the repetition is admissible. In typhoids that are somewhat delicate, never do such a thing. The more vigor there is in constitution, the more the remedy can cooperate with that vigor to bring about a safe and quick action. So if the patient's strength is good enough, the vigor is there, then that constitution bears the repetition little bit. But better is always not to repeat so much, specifically when you deal with the acutes. In acutes, the susceptibility is always high. And if susceptibility is high, the remedy, if you get a very perfect, it should not be repeated too much. It should be given in high potency and 1 or 2 doses. Give it first. Observe what happens after giving the remedy. And better method of doing it, ask the patient to visit you every day when you are dealing with acutes. Acutes, it is so much necessary to make a follow-up daily. I used to do that. If I am treating case of fever, I ask the patient to return back next day to observe whether our remedy is working in right direction or wrong direction. We have to understand. So this follow-up is very important. The more feeble the patient, the more cautious you should be about using the smallest dose you can give. In many chronic diseases, it is possible to bring about reaction in the first night. Hence, the danger of repeating the remedy. If the delirium subsides or a moisture comes upon skin and he slumbers placidly, the medicine should never be given beyond such a state. There are times in diphtheria where the repetition of the remedy will kill, and there are times with repetition. There are times when repetition will save the life. I hope someday to be able to discover the principle. What Kent says is very correct. It is very rather difficult to tell you exactly or to make a rule whether to repeat or whether not to repeat. It is a matter of or a question of experience. Here you have to judge because the things are dynamic. It is not a material where you can calculate and explain the rule and explain the dose. It's not like that. Whenever you deal with dynamics, the question is always about the judgment. And that judgment you have to decide specifically on the spot, depending upon the situation of the patient. You cannot make a specific rule in such types of cases. So this is what he is explaining over there. And many students ask me, sir, please teach us potency. My suggestion is that it is not possible to teach the potency. You have to sit over here along with us and or attend the OPD, and then you starts understanding why sir has given 10 m, why sir has given 30, why he has given 6, why he has given 50 millisiemens. It is a matter of question, depends upon that specific situation. Then you start understanding the exactness about the doses. In very grave and severe cases, the idea is plain that when reaction is taking place, you never repeat the remedy. And this is the truth. Whenever your remedy has acted, it has shown that it has acted, there is no question of repetition. When the reaction is has ceased, and the tendency is to go the other way, then it may be necessary to repeat. But repetition must never occur when reaction is coming. To be able to perceive when the reaction is coming, when it has ceased and tendency is to go other way. To be able to know this by the symptoms is an important thing for homeopathic physician. So he is explaining exactly when to repeat and when not to repeat. When you observe that your remedy is working properly, then there is no question of repetition. Then you just keep watch and give the placebo and keep the patient on placebo. When you find that symptoms are coming back, it is the time to repeat the remedy. But there also, you must be watchful. Unless and until the symptom calls for, you should not repeat. So this is very important thing which he is explaining over there regarding the repetition. Then he turns towards the aphorism number 158. And what he says? This tripling homeopathic aggravation, triples means Shullak. This tripling homeopathic aggravation of the malady during first few hours, the happy omen, which announces that the acute disease will soon be cured and that it will, for the more part, yield to the first dose. That a natural disease can destroy another by exceeding it in a power and intensity, but above all by its similarity, is the whole truth and nothing but the truth. So, whenever you give a right remedy based upon law of similars, and your remedy, it is a potency which is high considering the patient's susceptibility, and you have given and produced the artificial disease, and there occurs homeopathic aggravation, that sign itself is suggestive that patient is very early going to get cured because homeopathic aggravation has happened over there. And if it happens, then there is no question about the doubt, about taking the doubt about recovery. It itself is suggestive that cure is happened because of similarity and in right potency. So that when this slight aggravation, occurs, you will seldom, if ever, have to give another dose in an acute disease. When this aggravation does not come, when there is not a slight aggravation of the symptoms and the patient appears to be gradually better after the remedy, then it is that the remedy shows that it has not acted upon the same day. And that relief may cease in the case of acute disease. And when that relief ceases, the reaction has ceased. And then another dose of the medicine is the correct practice. So another possibility he has explained, if you had have given remedy and remedy has not produced any aggravation over there, but patient is feeling better after starting the medicine, then Kent says this reaction will remain for some time and patient will land into a again original state. If he lands into the original state again, it means there is a need to repeat the remedy. Sometimes repeat the remedy in same potency, sometimes you have to increase the potency depending upon the situation. Relief that begins without any aggravation of the symptoms does not last so long as in acute disease as when an aggravation has taken place. So he explains if aggravation has taken place in acute disease, that's all, there is no more repetition, no need to repeat. But if there is no aggravation after giving a remedy, right remedy to the patient, but patient is feeling better, he says that patient might require repetition of the remedy. A slight action of the remedy over and above the disease is good sign. So homeopathic aggravation is a good sign. Again, you will find if your remedy was not perfectly similar, you will not get an aggravation except in oversensitive patient, and then it is a medicinal aggravation. So after giving a partial simillimum, if you don't get aggravation, sometimes you get new symptoms. And when the old symptoms, one of the old symptom disappears, some remains, and some new symptoms arise. It is not called as a homeopathic aggravation, but this is called as a medicinal aggravation. When you find that you get no aggravation of symptoms in a good vigorous constitution, none at all, very often your remedy has been only partially similar and it may require 2 or 3 such partially similar remedies to finish the case. So then question of giving remedy in a zigzag manner. So some symptoms disappear, some new appears, then you have to take into consideration remaining symptoms plus newly added accessory symptoms, then make a totality, then again find it out a remedy. If you get right remedy, patient might get cured. If again it becomes a partial, then again you have to follow the same steps. This is what Hahnemann have explained in his Organ of Medicine, and he has explained how to go ahead with partial similar remedy. Kent has said same thing. In such types of cases, to finish that case, you require 2 or 3 remedies going in such a direction. If you will observe the work of ordinary physicians, you will notice they give two or three remedies to get their patients through where a master gives but once. So this is again one more thing which you can get over there. You get one or two or three remedies in succession when you deal with the cases. If you are not very clear regarding the remedy. But if a master is there who is expert in finding it out a very perfect simillimum, then definitely you are going to get a cure with first remedy in acutes. This is related with acutes, what he is dealing with. Then he turned toward the aphorism number 159. And what he says, the smaller the dose of the homeopathic remedy, the slighter the apparent aggravation of the disease, and it is proportionately of a shorter duration. This was written at the time of Hahnemann's experience with what might be called small doses, ranging from the low potencies to the 30th and seldom much higher. So Hahnemann was using it in a very low potencies. Hahnemann reached up to 30. And that's why Hahnemann made such a sentence. The smaller the dose of the homeopathic remedy, the slighter the apparent aggravation of the disease, and it is proportionately of a shorter duration. Here, Hahnemann wants to say that if you go ahead with potencies, instead of giving 3C, 6C, you would have given 30C. The aggravation will not last for longer time of duration, and it is you should not repeat that remedy. He had he had had ample experience with the 30th and occasionally with 60th, but not with the tremendous turmoil that comes from the very highest attenuation. It reads the in the correct translation of it. This is incorrect here. The smaller dose is of the homeopathic medicine, less and the shorter is the aggravation in first few hours. First hours, it might be considered to mean an aggravation. It might be considered to mean an apparent aggravation or an apparent aggravation of the disease. Now, Hahnemann observes, as you will find, among several of his writings, that the disease itself is actually intensified and made worse by the remedy. If the remedy be precisely similar, but if we pass from the crudity to the medicine, ranging up toward the 30th potency, we get a milder action and it has deeper curative action. And the smaller the dose of the homeopathic medicine, the less and shorter is the aggravation. So whenever Hahnemann talks about the smaller the dose, it means that potency, higher the potency. Many times, many makes mistakes over here. Smaller the dose means higher the potency, where the quantity of the medicine is reduced when you go ahead with the potency. The idea is that there is an aggravation in first few hours, and that is a matter that the paragraph itself admits, and it is this aggravation that Hahnemann is talking about. So this is the aggravation which is called to be homeopathic aggravation, and this should happen, but it should not long last. It lasts long if you give larger doses. Larger doses means less potency, or if you give it in material form, then it is called to be a larger doses. It is sometimes true that after third or fourth potencies of belladonna, a violent congestion of the brain, the aggravation is violent, and if the medicine is not discontinued, the child will die. The disease itself appears to be aggravated. The child seems to be so susceptible to belladonna that it appears as it were to be added to the disease. But with the 30th potency, as Hahnemann observes, this aggravation is slight and of a short duration. Here, he has made it very clear. Smaller the dose means higher the potency. So, if you go with higher potencies, the aggravation is slight and it is of a short duration. Now, in this, we get an outside aggravation. It is the drug. It is the drug disease of the remedy added to the natural disease, an aggravated state of the disease caused by the drug. It is true sometimes, in spite of this aggravation, that the patient says somehow or other he feels better. This aggravation is unnecessarily prolonged by giving too low potency. It is also prolonged by a repetition of the dose. I recently observed a state that occurred from repetition. I sent very robust young man A young woman, 20 years old, a dose of bryonia to be taken dry on tongue. However, she dissolved it in water and was taking it at the end of second day when I was sent for, at which time she seemed to be going into pneumonia. She had a dry, harsh cough. What is the matter with my daughter, doctor? Is she is going to die? She was proving bryonia. I stopped bryonia and next morning she was well. This has been seen a great many times when the medicine was similar. If the medicine is not very similar, only partially similar, it partially similar it may be similar enough to cure, but you will not see the results that I am now speaking of. But when you make accurate prescription and are doing your best work, you will see these things in the very best constitution. So he is giving you examples that if you would have given a remedy very perfect to the case. But what Hahnemann have said, if remedy is very perfect, the potency should be high and less is the repetition. If the susceptibility is high, potency is high, less is the repetition. So in such types of cases where acute disease is there and acute presentation is there, then you don't have to repeat so much. If you go on repeating, it will create a problem. Homeopathic aggravation generally creates because of unnecessary repetition in acutes. In acutes, you don't have to repeat too much. Even in robust constitutions also, you don't require to repeat it too much because susceptibility is already high in them. And then he further says in next paragraph, of course, the explanation is that the patient is sensitive to the medicine that will cure her as to the disease that she has. Disease states then are made worse by unnecessary repetition and by the dose not being small enough, that is, by the dose being very crude. The third, fourth, and sixth are dangerous potencies if you are good prescriber. Underline this sentence. Many people never understand this. Many people uses these potencies even today also. They never read the philosophy. They never read whatever is mentioned by this great man, and they follows the potencies mentioned in the borics, and they tries with their own way, and they says we are getting the results. What Kent says is very clear. The third, fourth, sixth are dangerous potencies if you are a good prescriber. If you are a poor prescriber, you will demonstrate but little of anything. You will naturally go to the higher and higher potencies for the purpose of departing from which seems to be a poisonous dose. So when you go high, 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 then poisonous dose is vanished. There is no question of poisonous dose comes thereafter. This action differs from the aggravation of the CM potency. During the latter, the patient feels decidedly better. It is short, it is decisive, and only the characteristic symptom of the disease are aggravated. The disease itself is not aggravated. The disease itself is not added to and is not intensified, but the symptoms of the disease stands out sharply, and patient says, "I am getting better." The symptoms sometimes are little alarming, but intermingled with this is a ray of light that convinces the patient from his innermost feelings that he is getting better. I feel much better this morning, says the patient, though the symptoms may have been sharpened up. So, this is what happens in acute diseases, and this is what happens with the homeopathic aggravation. The patient might get an aggravation, patient might feel that he is feeling better, but at the same time, his original symptoms might have flared up sometimes. But internally, at the inner conscience, patient starts feeling better. And this is a good sign specifically when you deal with the acute disease and no more repetition of the remedy is needed. And in such types of cases, always should give higher potency without so much repetition. So we'll stop over here in today's session. Tomorrow, definitely we're going to finish this chapter. So it is a big chapter, homeopathic aggravation, where he gives many practical hints, and these hints always helps in our practice. There are many controversies related with the potencies because we have not read the philosophy. The problem lies over there. Everyone feels philosophy is boring subject. Why to read? But philosophy is the subject because of which you know how to practice, how to utilize your practical materia medica. And that's why it is so much necessary to learn the philosophy. So that's all for today. Thank you being there. Today we will going to start and discuss one important remedy. Most probably it will take 2 lectures, and that is Veratrum album at 8:15. So be there at 8:15 with Veratrum album. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Have a good evening.
Thank you, sir.